guest lecture on this topic, I invite our professor and head, Dr. Narendra Babu sir. Sir is currently heading Livestock Products Technology Department at Madras Veterinary College, Chennai. Sir was my teacher also. So I kindly request you, sir, to present your lecture, sir. Thank you, sir.
Unmute yourself,
sir. Mute.
Selvan, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Participants are in what categories in Selvan?
Sir, they are all faculties, sir.
All veterinarians, eh? All veterinarians.
No, sir, not all veterinarians, sir. The majority of them are belonging to food science, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Shall I start now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, please, sir.
Selvan, is it sharing now?
Not yet, sir.
Hello.
Sir?
Good afternoon. Can you see the screen now?
No, sir, we cannot, sir. We are seeing your face, sir. So now it's coming, sir.
now it is presenting, sir.
Now it is presenting, no?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Make it full screen, sir.
Okay. So is it audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, dear participants, today's topic is on regulations related to poultry processing in industry, poultry processing in India. So we all know why we are thinking about rules and regulations. Because without framing the regulations and rules, it is very difficult for us to maintain the quality and other aspects regarding food and food products. You know, I hope by this time you can understand what is quality. It is very difficult for us to define, but generally we are telling that quality is one which is to satisfy the standards and the needs of the consumer. So here we are in earlier days we only bothered about the quality. So we talked about quality control and other things. Now everyone is talking about the assurance. Here we are here to give the assurance of your product, whether the product is safe for the consumer, how long you can keep the food. Because in quality control, it is only the end product quality assessment. Whereas in assurance, for each and every stage in processing is taken into consideration. Wherever the possibilities of contamination is there, everything is being taken into control, and finally we are giving the assurance that the product what we are giving delivering is safe. So safety is an important aspect, and at the same time food security is other term where we are much bothered about it. Once if you are thinking about the security, yes, the production pressure will be there. So quality is also important for us to meet the security. So both production and quality side by side it has to go, then only the needs of the consumers will be satisfied. So it is required, it is essential to protect the health and safety of the consumers. Most important thing is domestic consumers. Whatever the rules and regulations in our country, don't mistake me, we are very particular in giving a better quality to the export. In most of the aspects, in most of the time, we are neglecting our own domestic consumers. So now, as our consumers are also having exposed to so many international forum, now they are also having a chance to dictate the industry, or expects their expectations are more when, even compared to that of our international consumers. So our country is also now thinking about the domestic market. In most of the developed countries, these standards are framed based on the consumer. So mostly the market is consumer driven market in developed countries. Whereas in our country, we have not yet entered into that phase, but now the consumers slowly they started dictating the production units as well as the processing unit and the marketing unit that this is our need, this is our requirement and other things. That is one of the reasons why in online market, particularly during this corona period, there is an increased marketing through online, particularly in case of meat and meat products. So our country is also having a standard. Food law is also framed. FSSA is the body. So they are having their rules and regulations for each and every particular food production, and in meat also for buffalo production, buffalo meat production, beef production, mutton production, chicken production, which are having rules and regulations. Only thing, government can give the regulations only. It is we the consumers has to think and bring this law being implemented and the rules being followed and regulations has been followed. So this food law is not only going to regulate the production, it is going to regulate till it reaches the consumers. So food control, food safety, quality and relevant aspects of the food trade across the entire food chain is coming into this law. That is, for example, if you are consuming chicken meat, the ingredients what it is being given as input to the birds till it reaches the consumer's table is taken into consideration. So here, regulations in respect to slaughterhouse facilities, mostly slaughterhouse facilities and other things are similar to that of large animals, that is red meat marketing. Here, the most important thing is you have to get the no objection certificate to establish a slaughterhouse from the local authority before going for licensing and other things. So the most important thing is our establishments or the slaughterhouses should have a direct link with the meat market, and these markets should be away from other food commodity.
Sir, Babu sir, Babu
Ah,
sir,
ah,
slide move ஆக மாட்டேங்குது சார். ஃபர்ஸ்ட் ஸ்லைட்ல தான் இருக்குது. ஸ்லைட் ஷோ இன்னும் வரல. நார்மல் ஸ்லைட் ஷோ இன்னும் வரல. பட் ஃபர்ஸ்ட் ஸ்லைட்ல தான் இருக்குது. நீங்க முன்னாடி போயிட்டீங்கன்னு நினைக்கிறேன். ஃபர்ஸ்ட் ஸ்லைட்ல இருக்குது. இப்போ வருது. இப்போ வருது.
இப்போ வருதா?
அதாவது ஸ்லைட் ஷோக்கு இன்னும் போல சார். அது நார்மல் ஷோல தான் இருக்குது.
Now is it in slide show?
இல்ல சார்.
For me it is in slide show.
பட் நீங்க இப்படியே மூவ் பண்ணிட்டு போங்க சார். தெரியுது. பட் ஒரு ஸ்லைடா மூவ் பண்ணிட்டு போங்க சார் அப்படியே.
Okay, okay. So here, the most important thing is the slaughterhouses or the establishments where you are going to have your processing must be linked to the market, and those meat markets should be away from other food commodities. That is one of the important prerequisite, and this establishment should be in a elevated area to maintain the sanitary and other things, because drainage is an important thing in these type of establishments. So it is better to be in the elevated position, elevated level. So these are the regular things that every person in food science area they can easily understand. You have to, a separate reception area is required, layerage is required. It's a place where you are going to give rest to the birds after reception. Then slaughter hall, then the side rooms for collecting all the other offals and other things, and the condemned meat should be maintained, or suspected carcass should be maintained in detained room, condemned room, separate room, and refrigeration facility should be there. And the most important thing is there should be a clear demarcation between clean zone and dirty zone. Till evisceration, the section should be separated from the eviscerated carcasses, cleaned and eviscerated carcasses. Even restricted movement should be there. The person working in clean area should not be permitted to enter into the dirty area and other things, and vice versa. So the foremost important thing is a clear demarcation should be there, particularly between clean and dirty zones. And this movement should be in one direction, that is unidirection. There should be no reversal. Once if it is from the live bird is from the north side, the product should go towards the south side. It should be in the unidirectional way. Dear participants, it is visible now.
It's visible, sir.
But I am here. I am not able to go for that slide show. The problem why I don't know.
Okay.
Since it is visible, I can continue like this itself.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Since it is a boring subject, bear with me. Right, participants, it's a boring subject because rules and regulations most of us we don't like. Right. So anyhow, I will try to move it in an interesting way. Okay. So reception area is a place where you are going to receive the birds. In most of the bird slaughter area, immediately after reception, it will be shackled and the process will start. But as per the norms, they are asking to have an isolation pen, a holding area, and other things. Because these slaughterhouses are the places where notifiable diseases will be identified, and it has to be reported to the local veterinarian. Slaughterhouses are considered as the largest laboratory where you can observe for the different types of infectious and contagious diseases. So those infected animals or contagious, the affected animals should be kept separate in the isolation pens, and it should not be permitted to enter into the slaughter area. As well as if it is of contagious and infectious nature, it is better to be destroyed, not it is been returned back to the farm. Then inside the slaughter hall, a separate stunning area is required, and blood should be collected. and at no time this blood should be permitted to enter into the sewage area, that is regular drainage area in the plant. So blood should be collected and it is be drained in a separate way. That is the foremost important thing. Then regarding the walls and floors, it should be easily cleanable. It is better to have impervious glazed tiles up to 1 meter height in the walls, in the side walls, and the floors it is better to be epoxy coated. Floors it should be epoxy coated, and the ceiling and roof it has to be designed in such a way that minimal condensation should be taken place inside the plant. Then already itself we discussed that detained metrium should be there to keep all the material which is been
Sir,
suspected.
can you please keep the PPT in mode, sir, in presentation mode, screen?
Is it visible?
Not visible, sir, fully. Presentation mode, can you keep it in presentation mode?
Just a minute. Just.
சார் அங்கே இது ஒர்க் ஆகலன்னா அந்த 50% இருக்கு பாருங்க சார் கீழே, அதை கொஞ்சம் ஒரு 75% எடுத்துட்டு போங்க சார். கீழே அந்த ஸ்லைட் ஷேர் பக்கத்தில் கீழே 50% இருக்குதுல்ல, அது கொஞ்சம் 75% எடுத்துட்டு போக பாருங்க. ஸோ தட் கொஞ்சம் பெருசாகும். ஏதோ ப்ராப்ளம் இருக்குன்னு நினைக்கிறாங்க டு புட் இட் இன் ஸ்லைட் ஷோ. இன்னும் அது ரொம்ப பெருசாயிடுச்சு. இன்னும் கொஞ்சம் சின்னது சார், இன்னும் கொஞ்சம் சின்னது பண்ணுங்க. இன்னும் கொஞ்சம். Okay. I think this should be visible, sir.
Yes, sir. It's okay, sir. Sir, it's okay, sir. Sir? Sir, is it audible, sir?
Now you check it, is it audible?
Yes, yes, sir, it is audible, sir.
And the screen is also visible?
Yeah, sir, it's visible, sir.
Okay.
Participants, is it okay now?
Participants, is it okay?
Sir, it is visible, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Or else also you can close and side and சின்னதா வரல சார் க்ளோஸ் பண்ணிக்கலாம் சார் நீங்க. அப்ப கூட பெருசா தெரியும் சார்.
லெஃப்ட் சைடு பேனல் இருக்குல்ல சார், அத க்ளோஸ் பண்ணிக்கலாம்ன்றாங்க சார்.
லெஃப்ட் சைடு பேனல்ல க்ளோஸ் பண்ணிடலாம் சார்.
எஸ் சார்.
போதுங்களா?
எஸ் சார்.
இன்னும் பெருசாகணுமா?
வேண்டாம் சார்.
It's okay, sir.
No, it's visible, sir.
Okay,
sir.
So separate detention meat room is required for keeping the suspected carcasses, and at the same time separate condemned meat room is also required, and all these establishments it is better to be fly proof. It is the most important thing because the material which is being processed is going to attract more flies, rodents and other pests, and at the same time to this the doors must be automatically closable with spring facilities. Dear participants, is the slide moving now? Are you able to see the next slide?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the most important thing is, as per rules and regulation, you should not permit your laborers to sleep or chit chat inside the factory area, right? The workplace should be considered as a workplace where all the activities regarding to the processing must be carried over in hygienic conditions. That is the foremost important thing. Why I am telling this point: don't allow anyone to sleep or do some other unwanted things there, right? And there should be a separate drainage area, and a clear the understanding about the plumbing area should be there for all the workers inside the plant. So these drainage must be provided with traps. All the drains should be with traps in order to prevent the entry of these pests. Entry of these pests, and at the same time, the design of drain is also going to play a major role in removing the solid waste before entering into the drains. So the design of drain is more important, and the proper drainage facilities with traps should be given. Then a separate room should be provided for the edible and inedible material. Edible and inedible material in the processing area. And sufficient amount supply of potable water is required. And for cleaning as well as for sterilization purpose, sufficient amount of hot water should also be provided in the slaughterhouses. Then other facilities required for maintaining the personal hygiene that we have to consider while designing these establishments are proper cloak room where the laborers will change their dresses, footwear and other things, and they should be well trained how to maintain the personal hygiene. They have to clean the hands before entering into the room, before touching the material which is being to be processed. Then sufficient number of toilets should be given for them, and wash basin should be leg operated wash basin should be provided in the processing area. Then sufficient number of sterilizers that has to be given. For every 25 laborers, one washroom should be one toilet must has to be provided in the processing area, and sufficient number of sterilizers has to be given for sterilizing the equipments. Then the product which is being processed has to be maintained at 0 to 2 degrees centigrade. So facilities has to be created in such a way to maintain the storage area to be maintained at 0 to 2 degrees centigrade. And the chimney should be provided for removal of smoke and other dust particles. Dust particles. And the most important one that we have to consider is how much importance that we are giving for sufficient amount of potable water. The same facilities importance has to be given for disposal of slaughterhouse waste as well as the refuses. In order to treat this waste material, liquid waste, solid waste, we need proper treatment plants. So based on the output, based on the raw material, based on the byproduct, we have to think about whether rendering plant and other things are needed for your processing unit, or sufficient ordinary composing is sufficient. So that thing has to be taken into consideration. Then laboratory is more important, because at the time of inspection in most of the area, they will check for your plant whether it is fit for processing. There they will check for the availability of lab facilities by the licensing authority. Based on the production capacity, effluent treatment plant also to be designed, because each and everything has been taken by they viewed seriously by the licensing authority. So lighting is sufficient natural or artificial light is required. In all the inspection points, 540 lux is required. In workrooms, it is 220 lux, and in case of other areas, it is 110 lux light intensity is required. Then standard operating practices for each and every process line. The most important thing is standard operating practices has to be developed. It is not only for development, it has to be followed. That means each and every labor who is involved in that particular process must be well aware or well known about those operating practices. So these are certain important points that has to be taken care when considering about the personal hygiene. Even the person working has to be periodically examined for his health condition. He should be free from infectious, contagious and other listed diseases. So such type of records has to be maintained. Such type of records has to be maintained in the processing unit. Suppose a person is being identified for a particular type of disease, then it is better to remove him from the role. It is not right to allow him to work. And each and every staff, they require, the administration must maintain not only the register, they have to maintain the certificates. If there is a vaccination program followed, it has to be recorded, and other cleanliness activities has to be taken care. The aprons, headgears, what are all the things that you have to, that is being used by that person, how to use those things has to be recorded, and the workers has to follow all these points. Then comes the welfare. So here the most important thing is, it is better to minimize the stress. We have to create the environment which is going to minimize the stress level in the birds. The most important area where most of the birds are affected is loading, unloading, and transportation. So, utmost care has to be taken in this area. So, try to minimize injuries in the birds, try to minimize stress, particularly during loading, unloading, and transportation. I think there is much exposure for you people regarding the stress and other things and how it is going to affect the quality and other things. So I am not going to touch all those things. So here, while transport, the most important thing that you have to consider is when you are going to transport. So at extreme temperatures, it is better to avoid. It is better to transport during late nights, late evenings or in the early morning hours. It is not only the temperature, it is also the wind velocity is also going to be it is also going to affect the birds which is being transported. So along with the birds, number and kind of birds loaded has to be noted. Address and telephone number and name of the consignee has to be there along with the birds which are transporting in the vehicle. Then instructions regarding feeding and watering has to be provided. Overcrowding must be avoided, and the drivers are most important person to be taught about the importance of the health or the welfare of the birds. So he must be advised to travel at the speed less than 40 kilometers per hour. It is better to avoid jerks and jolts, because transport is an important area where there are more losses. So regularly birds are commonly stunned before the processing. Most of the birds, about 70% of the slaughterhouses abroad, they are following carbon dioxide gas stunning, followed by electrical stunning, and in very less places they are going for mechanical type of stunning. Stunning is an important area and it is mandatory in most of the countries, but in our country, whereas even though it is, as regulation is very clearly telling that it is mandatory to stun the birds before slaughter. So electrical stunning is being adopted in our country in the modern plants. Water bath electrical stunning is commonly used. So this is the recommended voltage 100 milliamps for broilers and 150 milliamps for turkeys as per the regulation. And this is regarding the gas stunning, which is not followed in our country. So 30% carbon dioxide is tried in this gas stunning and commercially being used. Then model code of practice. So from farm till slaughterhouse, all these things has to be checked for. How it is housed, how it is been managed at the time of growing, how it is been transported, and how it is unloaded in the slaughterhouse, and how it each for each and everything codes are available. A model welfare program is also developed for pickup, transport. Hello? Hello, is it audible? Hello?
Sir, it's audible, sir.
It is clear. Okay.
Clear, sir. Clear, sir.
Yes, sir.
That is audible, sir.
Okay. So from farm till it reaches the slaughter area, there are codes of practice which has to be followed. And a model welfare program has also been developed, how to pick up, how to transport, and how to process the things. These are the things in regulations they have given. And welfare is also been audited nowadays in most of the plants. So catching is an important area in the farm, transport, holding, stunning. So these things are coming under that model program, how you are going to catch the bird, how it is been loaded and how it is been unloaded. Those things has to be checked for. Only healthy animals are permitted to slaughter. So once again, technically speaking, a veterinarian is a person who is authorized to conduct antemortem inspection. So in all the poultry processing plants, veterinarian has to conduct antemortem inspection similar to that of other live animals before slaughter. Then post-mortem inspection, yes, all the carcasses, each and every individual carcass has to be checked for its fitness for consumption along with its offal. Then only the qualified veterinarian can give whether it is fit for consumption or it is unfit for consumption. Only after that type of certification, this type of meat has to be marketed for consumption. This is what regulation is telling. Don't mistake me. It is more imaginary presentation, right? This is what regulation is telling. Antemortem inspection has to be conducted for birds. Only healthy birds has to be permitted for slaughter. And in case of post-mortem inspection, each and every carcass has to be checked for its fitness for consumption. Then only the qualified veterinarian is going to give the certificate whether it is fit for consumption or not. If it is affected, it has to be removed from the consumption line. If there is a partial contamination, the part of the portion has to be removed and rest of the thing has to be sent. So inspected and passed is the label in case of meat which is fit for consumption has to be given by the qualified veterinarian. If it is not fit, then it is inspected and condemned. Inspected and condemned has to be given. Bruises and injuries, if it is there, the affected area has to be trimmed off and then the carcass has to be passed, or the portion of the carcass has to be passed. Those trimmed portion will be removed properly and disposed of in the regulated means. So a veterinarian, the role of veterinarian in case of poultry processing plant is also important, even though the number of birds per hour is being handled in a larger area. So incineration facilities or other things has to be checked for. Then carbolic acid and other type of disinfectants, it is to be there, which is being used against the bone this condemned material has to be properly used and it has to be disposed of. So then the plant's location, it should be free from flooding. So already it has been discussed, it is better to be in an elevated area and it should be away from other type of food processing units and other industries to be free from odor, smoke, dust and other contaminants. And it is better to have a easy accessibility by the laborers and other modes of transport and other things. So sanitary facility is most important thing. 65 degrees centigrade water is required for cleaning activities. 82 degrees centigrade water is hot water is required for sterilizing the equipments. Effluent and waste disposal is an important area. Effluent treatment plant is must, and biological oxygen demand level must be less than 1500. Then there should be a sufficient space provided for this collection and storage of waste and inedible material, and it has to be properly disposed of, because this is a vulnerable area where there are more chances for spreading of disease, more chances for pest and other things are there. So it has to be properly checked and it has to be disposed of. So sufficient number of these changing facilities already we have discussed. For labor welfare has to be checked for. Sufficient number of toilets, hand washing units has to be provided. Hot water and cold water supply should be maintained. Ventilation is the most important one. Minimal condensation is permitted inside the plant. It is for the welfare of the laborers as well as the quality of meat. Cleaning and disinfection. These aromatic compounds, it is better not to be, the compounds which are having some aroma, it is better not to be used inside the plant. Only the approved sanitizers and disinfectants has to be used. Already we have discussed about the standard operating procedure, right? For each and every process, including cleaning and disinfection also, there should be a proper standard operating procedure. Proper schedule should be there. Everything should be documented and it should be known by the employees involved in that particular section. So personal hygiene, we have already discussed regarding the person has to be inspected, medical examination has to be conducted, and he has to be taught about the personal hygiene and personal cleanliness. Including the visitors, it is better to taught them and permit them to enter inside the plant. Then regarding the meat shop. So in our country, regulations are there for meat processing plant. Regulations are there for retail meat shops. So these shops has to be established, that is it should not be less than 50 meters from the place of worship. For example, if there is a temple, it is not right for us to have a meat shop within this 50 meters from that temple. And the condition of 100 meters distance will apply in case of premises situated directly opposite to the entry gate of the religious place. That is also taken care. It is not only temple, church or mosque, whatever it may be. Regarding the religious place, it is better to be 50 meters away. If it is in the front view, then it is better to be 100 meters away from the religious place. Then size of the meat shop based on the throughput and at the affordability of the person who is going to run the business, it is being decided and it has to be taken care. And walls of the shop should not be less than 3 meters with tiles. With tiles, that is foremost important thing. That is nothing but it should be easily cleanable. It should be easily cleanable. In case of meat shops with the air conditioned facility, 2.5 meters must be covered with easily washable walls. Then walls up to 5 feet from the floor should be of this concrete material. 2 feet from the floor should be of this concrete material. 3 feet from the floor should be of this concrete material. 4 feet from the floor should be of this concrete material. 5 feet from the floor should be of this concrete material. 6 feet from the floor should be of this concrete material. 7 feet from the floor should be of this concrete material. 8 feet from the floor should be of this concrete material. 9 feet from the floor should be of this concrete material. 10 feet from the floor should be of this concrete material. 11 feet from the floor should be of this concrete material. 12 feet from the floor should be of this concrete material. 13 feet from the floor should be of this concrete material. 14 feet from the floor should be of this concrete material. 15 feet from the floor should be of this concrete material. 16 feet from the floor should be of this concrete material. 17 feet from the floor should be of this concrete material. 18 feet from the floor should be of this concrete material. 19 feet from the floor should be of this concrete materi Then floor drainage is more important. 5 centimeters slope should be there for every 3 meters. 5 centimeter slope should be there for every 3 meters. That is the important regulation for easy removal of waste and other things from the floor. All the fittings must be of non-corrodable and non-rusting in case of meat shops. All processing tables, racks, shelves, boards shall be of zinc, aluminum, stainless steel or marble tops. Signboard indicating the type of meat sold must be displayed. This is as per the regulation. This is as per the regulation. What meat is sold has to be displayed in the meat shop. And the most important one is the premises should have provision of sewer connection for drainage of wastewater. So don't mistake. Blood should not be permitted. Blood must have a separate line. It should not be permitted to enter into the sewer connection. Potable water, sufficient amount of potable water is required. And the doors, similar to that of slaughterhouses, it is better to be of self-closing type. And glass tops, it is better to keep these for the public to not to see the carcasses. The design should be like that. Equipment and accessories. Yes, already we have discussed about what type of equipment to be used and other things. Particularly fly proofing, where in most of the places the air curtains are used, fly traps are used. Then cabinets, chillers like freezers as well as chillers is must. Most of the places it is better to maintain with chiller. 4 to 8 degrees centigrade chillers are available now. It has to be maintained because to minimize the spoilage as per the regulation in a meat shop, if we are delivering the fresh meat also, we have to maintain a freezer chiller with the 4 to 8 degrees centigrade. If you are going to retain the meat for more than 48 hours, then as per the regulation, you have to maintain a freezer cabinet. Freezer cabinet. Then weighing scales, it should be properly have the, as per the norms, it has to be sealed, and it's a surface where the contact is there, so it is better to be of stainless steel. The knives, tools and hooks, everything it is better to be of stainless steel. Then even in meat shops, for sterilization of this equipment, it is must for us to maintain 82 degrees centigrade hot water. It is not only in the processing plant, it is must for the meat shops also to have 82 degrees centigrade hot water for sterilizing the things. Then wash basin, it has to be maintained with the soap dispensers and other required cleaning agents. Then chopping board, it is better to be of Teflon or the synthetic material. If you are going for wood, then it is better to be hardwood. But here the most important thing is you have to maintain the wooden log properly. That is the foremost important thing. And a separate waste bin, pedal operated, has to be maintained in the premises. Then transportation, insulated refrigerated vehicles are recommended for transporting meat. Insulated refrigerated vans are recommended. Then pest control, yes. Chlorinated hydrocarbons, organophosphorus compounds, rodenticides. Yes, we know that these things are used to eliminate the pests, but it should not be used in the meat shop because there are chances for contamination of the food. So it is better to avoid this type of compounds. And the most important thing, which is not at all followed in our country, is that you have to understand no live bird should be allowed inside or adjacent to meat shops. What they are trying to tell? So slaughter should not be performed in the meat shop. Slaughter has to be carried in the centralized slaughtering units or processing units from where you have to bring the carcasses and it has to be marketed. But in our country, even license are given in most of the corporations and the municipalities to slaughter birds and sell in the meat shop itself. But as per the regulation, no live bird should be allowed inside or adjacent to the meat shop. Then sanitary practices is similar to that of in processing units. Yes, it is must for us to have all the required detergents, disinfectants, everything sanitizers, and at the same time, standard operating procedure has to be followed on daily basis as well as on the weekly basis. What has to be done weekly, what has to be done on a monthly basis, each and every schedule is also been in function. Each and every shop they can have their own program, but it has to be followed. Slaughtering of birds inside the shop premises should be strictly prohibited. It is also very clearly given in the regulation. In regulation, it is very clearly mentioned you should not slaughter birds in the shop where you are selling the carcasses shall not be allowed to covered with wet cloths. The next one. In most of the places, they will cover with, nowadays they are not covering with wet cloths. They are putting the carcass inside the water itself. Right? So then waste bins should be there, and it has to be, waste must be properly disposed through panchayats or municipalities. Then the clothings and other personal belongings, if it is being kept inside the premise, it has to be kept in a proper way. Mostly it is better to avoid such type of personal belongings being placed inside the meat premises, shop premises. Hello? Is it audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. This is what regulation. I have confined this presentation for our Indian standards, particularly based on FSSAI regulations. So in that it is very clearly told that live bird should not be slaughtered in meat shop. So in the first foremost important point itself, we are failing, right? As per regulation, you should not slaughter chicken in the meat shop. It is better to slaughter in the processing unit. From there, it has to be transported to the meat shop in an insulated van. Then it has to be marketed, right? So regulations are there. How you are going to adapt, how corporation is going to adapt, how municipality is going to adapt. All these things are questionable. All these things are questionable, right? So this is regarding this regulations topic. So is there any doubt regarding this?
Is there any question? If there is no question, then thank you, sir. Thank you so much for sharing your valuable time to deliver the lecture on regulations related to poultry processing in India, sir. So thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Salman. Thank you. Thank you, Ruben.
Sir, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ruben.
Participants, we have a validity function by 4 o'clock. Thereafter, we have our exam by 4:30. We have sent a link for our exam also, and I have sent the PowerPoints related to food safety management system and auditing to your registered mail ID. You just go through that also. So you please be at time for the validity function by 4 o'clock. You kindly ensure that whether you have got the link and be ready. Is there any queries? Please feel free to ask. The questions has been evenly distributed on all the 4 sessions. So you just go through and write. And the link will be enabled for 1.5 hours from 4:30 to 6 o'clock. So you have to complete your exam during that that time. You joined the validity function early because we have invited Dean CFDD Kodoli as a guest. So please join in time. That's okay. Then thank you. Then we will join to the validity function.